Women's votes was one of the most dramatical change in our society.
Every country has a different story to how they got the vote, but today we will just be talking about the story of England and Switzerland.
The first signs of women's revolution was in New Zealand in 1893.
Women in England always fought for the vote, but only became more understood after World War I.
The reason for this was that all men were at war, which led to jobs being lost. These jobs were then taken over by women.
A lot of these jobs were very dangerous, but women got their first pay packet and they liked it.
Before all of this, women had manifested and created suffragettes and suffragists.
Suffragettes are the first group that fought for women's votes in England. They had non-violent procedures and were led by Millicent Fawcett.
Who is Millicent Fawcett?
Millicent Fawcett is an English feminist, intellectual, political, and union leader. She is known as a campaigner for women's votes.
Now onto the suffragettes. They used to be part of the suffragists, but then created a new group. They decided to do this because the suffragettes were not getting anywhere with peace. So they changed it to violence. They did this by breaking windows and causing riots. The leader of the suffragettes was Emily Pankhurst.
Who helped the suffragettes?
Emily Pankhurst was the British leader for suffragettes movements in 1903.
There was also Emmeline Davison, who threw herself under the King's horse in 1930. She then died 3 days later, on the 8th of June, due to head injuries.
Being a suffragette also came with some consequences, such as being brought to Holloway Prison. The women in Holloway Prison went on hunger strikes to show that they should be treated like normal prisoners.
When they all got out of prison, they were all considered as heroes.
After getting the vote, women did not stop there. They voted for rights, education, for women MPs, and finally for a woman Prime Minister.
First woman Prime Minister in the UK was Margaret Thatcher.
After all the manifestations and accidents, women finally got the vote in 1928, on the same terms as men, but they had to be over 30 years old to vote.
This revolutionised the way men saw women and started respecting them more.
Now on to Switzerland.
In 1860 to 1874, the feminist movement was organised and there were numerous discussions on the feminist movement.
In 1886, the first petition was shown to the Federal Council by a woman named Marie Guegg-Pouchelin.
Who is Marie Guegg-Pouchelin?
Marie Guegg-Pouchelin was the first feminist in Switzerland. She founded the AIF, which stands for
Association Internationale des Femmes.
Women in Switzerland gained the right to vote in a federal election after a referendum in February 1971.
In 1991, after a decision by the Federal Court of Switzerland, Appenzell Innerrhoden became the last Swiss canton to give women the vote on local issues, which is quite modern.
For all of this, a referendum was held on February 1959 and was rejected by 67% of men.
Despite this, in some French-speaking cantons, women got the vote to write in local referendums.
The first woman to hold political office was Trudy Spitzer. She was elected to the multiple government of Rhine in 1958.
The first female member of the 7 members of the Swiss Federal Council was Elisabeth Kops. She served from 1984 to 1989.
Who is Elisabeth Kopp?
Elisabeth Kops is a Swiss politician and the first woman elected to the Swiss Federal Council.
All countries have been through a battle for women's votes and rights, and in some countries it's still going on, like for Saudi Arabia and Iraq.
We are lucky enough to live in a society which allows women to write and vote.
This is the story of women's votes in Switzerland and England.